Hello, beauties. I am coming to you again a little bit late on this Monday, but I am excited to talk to you about feeling the feels. We are still in Gemini season right now and all up in our heads. There's a lot going on in the world as per usual. And I've been thinking a lot about manifestation and about feelings and how the two are related. So I wanted to talk to you today about the feels, about how to actually feel your feelings and how some of what manifestation teaches seems to be interpreted differently when it comes to human design. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that. So, first thing I wanted to say is about how we as a society tend to suppress our feelings. And as women, we often suppress our feelings in order to people please, right? That's the majority of the time what is happening is we are trying to fit inside of a box to be more palatable somehow, some way to people so that people will like us because they want us to be pleasant, or maybe they want us to do something and we want to be seen as productive, which means that we have value. We want to be seen as helpful. So we don't rock the boat, although as midlife women, we know that those tendencies do fall away a bit. But I wanted to talk about some of the feelings that we tend to repress most often. And I think even as midlife women, old habits die hard and conditioning can still remain present, ever present, even as our awareness grows. So I've talked about rage on the podcast before. Definitely anger is maybe one of the maybe the number one emotion that women tend to suppress because we again don't want to be seen as a bitch, and that's oftentimes what comes out or what people will respond as. Well, you're such a bitch because you are pissed off about something. And rightfully so. Like you have every right to feel how you want, how your body feels. Another emotion is desire, right? And being outwardly desirous. Is desirous a word? Yes, it is. Desiring something outwardly. What does that get us called? Gets us called sluts, right? Or whores, or some version of that word. If it's about grief, about showing that we are sad about something or feeling sad about something, then we're pussies or we're wimps, right? Or even if we feel joy outwardly, then it's like we're too much somehow. So, kind of damned if we do, damned if we don't sort of situation when it comes to the conditioning and the messages that we receive from society. And so I want to talk a little bit about these feelings. And I've named the fact that we are often suppressing them. And I want to now draw the through line to how they actually, what's the word I'm looking for? How they come about in our bodies. And I've talked about on the podcast, especially in manifestation episodes in the past, how thoughts lead to feelings, feelings lead to action. And this was the phrase that I've really been thinking about lately because although I do agree with that, thoughts do lead to feelings. I also think that there is a difference with human design, and especially those of us who have an emotional wave. So in regards to the thoughts lead to feelings, feelings lead to actions. You can think a sad thought and then feel sadness in your body. So, for example, if you have the thought something along the lines about feeling old, I feel old. Well, this can lead to feelings of being discouraged or feeling unvalued or feeling invisible or feeling sad or defeated, right? Because our society, generally speaking, has not valued women who age. So if you changed the thought, if you're thinking thoughts lead to feelings, feelings lead to action, then the feeling would change here, right? And that is possible. If you can train your brain, which you can through subconscious reprogramming and awareness, you can train your brain to spit out different thoughts. However, I also want to address just the idea of feelings and how those feelings can come from your solar plexus, right? They can come from your emotional solar plexus. And emotional authorities, sometimes feelings just show up without a cause, without without like a thought that precludes them. For example, you just wake up feeling melancholy or feeling down about something before you've even had a thought in your head. And how do you know how you're feeling? I want to pause on this idea of the solar plexus for a second and back up to the feelings themselves, because those thoughts happen in the mind, right? And I think oftentimes we are so focused on the thought itself that we forget to pay attention to the sensations in our body when we have feelings as a result of those thoughts. Because those feelings have sensations in our body, right? They cause sensations in our bodies. Like sadness may feel like a heaviness in your heart or a weighty feeling, like you've got this weighted blanket on you, but not in a good way. Or your eyes might feel heaviness or pressure, even that they need to cry or they feel like they need to cry. Or maybe there's an empty feeling in your gut. Whereas your thoughts are usually things that are quickly followed by explanations or justifications or stories, like they kind of ramble on and on and on, and they aren't sensations in your body. So the difference being thoughts in your mind, they stay in your mind and oftentimes play on loop. And yes, they can cause feelings, but the difference being that feelings are those sensations. So back to the emotional authority, say you wake up in the morning and you feel like shit, or you like, maybe not like shit health wise, but like shit, I just don't want to get out of bed. I'm depressed, I'm sad, I'm melancholy. And oftentimes what'll happen is your mind rushes in to explain with a story why that is happening. Like it has to answer the question, why is that happening? Well, maybe it's my relationship. Maybe it's my job. Maybe there's something wrong with my health. Maybe. And then we know that the reticular activating system in your brain, the RAS, will look for evidence to prove that story. And thank you, Raz, for keeping us safe. But this is part of our brain that we kind of need to thank and retrain if we desire to live our lives as fully as we desire to do. Because that Raz is going to look for evidence that, oh, yeah, you are feeling melancholy because your job is horrible and you're not appreciated, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And actually, what might be happening is you're just in the low of your wave. maybe that is what's happening if you are an emotional authority, especially if you have multiple activations in your chart, if you have multiple waves coming out of your solar plexus, because they're going to be traveling at different speeds and moving to their own pace. And there's no real rhyme or reason. It just means that those emotions need to move through you. So you are looking to retrain your RAS to look for evidence that, oh, okay, actually maybe this is just a low of my emotional wave. And sometimes that takes just tracking it. I use my planner, my Planning by Design planner, which is a PDF that I created for the year, and it sets out things. It sets out all of the week, and I have a section where I can track different things, whatever I happen to want to be tracking. And you can write it down, like, how did I wake up this morning? What was my emotional landscape today? And just sort of see how your wave moves up and down and up and down. And then you can detach from that story that your mind is making up about what you think those feelings are about. Asking yourself, is this a thought created feeling, or is this a place in my emotional wave? That is a key question. And again, this can be hard to discern. It can be hard to kind of parse out, which is the kind of work that I do with midlife women. So if you are interested in working together and getting some help with this, you can book a session. The link is in the show notes. So I want to talk briefly about how to actually feel your feelings, because a lot of times what will happen is we repress those feelings even when our mind is making up those stories and we feel those sensations. We then kind of freak out and we're like, oh, well, I can't emote. I can't cry right now because that's not appropriate, or I can't scream right now because I'm at work, or whatever the case may be. So I remembered a past, I can't remember if it was a blog post or a podcast, but I remember listening to something or reading something from Eden Carpenter about actually feeling your feelings. And I want to share with you three of the things that she said that I thought were helpful. The first one is trying to figure out where in your body you feel the sensation of whatever the feeling is. So let's say that you are feeling sadness, because sadness can be hard to sit with. So let's say you're feeling sadness and you can feel it around your heart space. So if you can sit for 90 seconds, it only takes about 90 seconds for an emotion to be fully felt from beginning to end in your body. So if you can sit for 90 seconds or take a pause for this time and focus on your heart space where you're feeling this sensation, and picture it as some kind of energy. Give it a color. Maybe it has a texture. Hone in on where you're feeling it and ask it, where do you want to go? Where do you want to move? How do you want to move? Sometimes maybe it wants to just move through your body and out. Maybe it wants to shrink in on itself. Maybe it wants to be felt even more, even wider, like expanding. Just allowing that and kind of saying, I see you. I see you, and I'm willing to be here with you and feel you through my body. The second thing she talks about is locating that position, that sensation of emotion in your body, where it is. So again, let's, using sadness, say that it's in your heart center. And then honing in on the location even more, like trying to literally pinpoint where it feels the most intense. Maybe you place a finger on that spot. Maybe it's just with your mind, you use your mind to pinpoint the location and really concentrate on that one tiny, tiny spot where it feels the most intense and just breathe through that sensation. And when it starts to feel less intense, redirect and zoom out a bit. And then again, do the same thing. Repeat the same process over. Is there another space where it feels really intense? Hone in on that space, pinpoint it, and then just sit with it and really feel, really focus in on that one pinpointed area. And again, when it finally starts to dissipate, zoom out and see when it feels better. Eventually, you should feel the intensity has passed and you have literally felt your feelings. Number three is crying, of course. And I use sadness as an example. So crying makes the most sense, but we remember that we can cry happy tears too, right? And this is from Eden specifically. She talks about how emotions set off a whole bunch of chemical signals into your brain. And normally, those emotions are going to travel through your nervous system. And then the aftermath of the chemical system signals is going to be processed and cleaned from your body over the next few hours or days. So it's like when you're willing to feel through the emotions, the nervous system is going to help process that stuff and use it for energy, get rid of it. However, remember, emotions are just energy in motion. But sometimes when there are too many signals at one time, when it's like really powerful, the body uses tears as a shortcut, essentially. It gets rid of those chemicals through your tears. So let yourself cry. If you feel like you have to cry, let the tears come. And I'm talking to myself just as much as I am you, because I know that there's so many times when I feel like tears are inconvenient. And plus, also, it's so important for us to allow those tears, not only for ourselves and our own emotional health, but also to model for those around us, right? I'm specifically thinking about my boys. I have talked ad nauseum on this podcast about how feelings are energy in motion and that energy needs to move through you. And we've talked also about exercise as a way to move energy through you. So, this is just a reminder that you can also move those emotions through your body through regular movement throughout your day. So, maybe you go for a run in the morning or do some yoga or go for a bike ride or go for a ski, whatever the season is. Maybe you're getting outside. And plus, also, I recognize that a lot of you are still working and maybe sitting for periods of time. So I want to just encourage you to still use some movement even when you're sitting. You can tap your fingers on your desk to release anxiety. You can, bop your feet around. You can do a little dance with your feet to release joy or excitement. There are ways to still be able to release those emotions even when you're sitting and keeping still for periods of time. So, the last thing I wanted to do was just kind of summarize some of what I have said with short little phrases that may be helpful for you to kind of puzzle this all together. So, our experiences create thoughts. So, for example, I went out with my friends last night. I had a great time, and a thought comes into my head. Oh my God, I love these girls so much. I had so much fun. I just am so excited that I made the decision to go out with them. So, experiences create thoughts. Thoughts create feelings. So, using this example, I feel so much love for my friends. I feel excitement about, going out with them, about going out to this great new restaurant. It was super fun. We had a lot of laughs. I am feeling joyful from that, thinking about that experience in my thoughts. So those thoughts create feelings of joy. Then my feelings create more thoughts. This is where I can potentially get into writing a story about what I experienced, right? So, like, I want to keep feeling that joy. That joy was so good. So, I think I should go out with them more often. And this is where you can get into the danger zone a little bit with telling yourself stories that may or may not be your capital T truth, right? Like, I'm so lame, I should go out more often, or I wish I had more energy, there must be something wrong with me, or, do my friends like me as much as I like them? All of that self talk that can just get garbled up in your head. So, those feelings can, again, create thoughts in your mind. Okay. Emotional waves also create feelings. So let's say the next day you wake up in a funk after you just went out and had a great time with your friends, and then you wake up the next day in a funk. Conditioning creates thoughts. You might think, oh my God, I'm too old for this. I shouldn't go out like that anymore. I should not, like, I'm past my prime for going out with my friends, and I wake up feeling like this, and it's just not worth it, etc., etc. So this is where conditioning creates those thoughts, and conditioning essentially is the stories that I'm talking about. These are the stories that are pulled right from the societal conditioning, the expectations, the thinking that you should be doing something differently, when actually you just went out and had a great time, and maybe you wake up the next day and you're in a low of your emotional wave. So, what is the key to all of this? The key to all of this is, of course, your authority. Because when it comes right down to it, your authority should guide your action. So, feel through your feelings, take note of your thoughts, be aware of your thoughts. Ultimately, though, authority has to guide your action. That's your opportunity to disrupt patterns and to stop making decisions based on incorrect information, which would be those conditioned thoughts happening in your head, or the feelings that you think are important information but are actually just a low in your wave or a high in your wave. So ride the wave. And then when it comes to, let's use the weekend, going out with your friends on the weekend example again. When the weekend comes, how do you feel if you're an emotional authority? Or if you're a splenic authority, what is your intuition telling you? Make the decision in the moment when you get the invitation. Hey, let's go to the new restaurant tonight. Do you guys want to go and see? What does your intuition tell you? So use your specific authority. Remember, if you're new to this podcast, you can get your free human design chart and a free human design guide that will tell you what your authority is on my website, lorileeside.com. Go to get your chart, plug in your birth information, and you'll find out what that is. So, like, what is your authority? What is your decision maker? And ultimately, with your authority, you're trying to learn how to follow those pulls, how to follow your body's information into what lights you up, because that is what is going to guide you into the life that you want to live, right? It's those little breadcrumbs, those pieces that your future self is giving to your present self to say, hey, follow these breadcrumbs. This is what you're looking for. And when you follow what lights you up, when you follow the nudges from your body, that's what you're doing. You're following your authority, you're getting those hints from your future self, and you're listening to them. So, if you want more episodes about manifestation, let me know. I would love to hear in the comments, like on Instagram or whatever. Find me on socials and send me a note or send me an email, Lori@LoriLeeSci.com. And if this helped you in any way, please follow and subscribe to it because it is so helpful in getting this podcast out to other women, as well as if you have any women who you think this would be really helpful for, then please, please, please share it with them. And until next week, I am wishing you the strength to let go of what no longer serves you, joy to fill your days, and the clarity to be who you came here to be.